Hare Krishna. Welcome to our ISKCON Dublin Sri Krishna Janmastami celebrations for 2024. You know, I was thinking when I was asked to say a few words what to speak about, and I thought of this very nice pastime that connects Krishna's appearance with Rath Yatra. Just as a matter of interest, hands up any of you who attended any of our 3 Rath Yatras this year, Belfast, Cork or Dublin. Okay, quite a few of you. And that's just happened. That's just finished a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so I thought I would share a little pastime. But then I thought, you know, some of these pastimes of Lord Krishna, they are extremely confidential and esoteric. And this gentleman that you can barely see here, of course we have a picture there. The gentleman you see there at the left-hand side of the screen and the right-hand side here, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he translated a book called the Krishna book. And that book delineates all of Lord Krishna's prominent pastimes. You can't actually account for them all because they're unlimited. That's the nature of Krishna, the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is unlimited and inconceivable. So Krishna's pastimes are also inconceivable. But we still share them. Prabhupada still gave us Krishna book, because the idea is that the more that we hear about Krishna, the more our hearts are purified, and the more we can enter into these pastimes and the confidential aspects of them. But the key is purifying our hearts. Have I got the right place in my heart? I don't have a heart, that's why I find it hard to find. But purifying our hearts. And therefore I want to start with a nice story, if you like, message, a nice message that Srila Prabhupada gave us, the same gentleman I'm talking about there. He gave us this lovely message that's connected to the birth of Lord Krishna, or the advent of Lord Krishna. So on that fateful night, I think Abhay Giriraj already referred to it, on that fateful night when Kamsa was driving the chariot with his sister and brother-in-law on, and then he heard from the sky, the ominous, I'm going to do an ominous voice now. Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and brother-in-law. But the 8th child of this couple will come and kill you. And when Kamsa heard that, he immediately stopped the chariot. Immediately stopped the chariot. Now it's very interesting, because Kamsa did not have to drive that chariot. He was a king. He had so much opulence, he had so much resources, so many charioteers, so many drivers, so many servants. He didn't need to drive the chariot, but the reason he drove the chariot is because he wanted to show some love and affection for his sister, particularly his sister, Devaki. And you know, Devaki, in those days, probably doesn't happen anymore, but in those days, when Devaki got married to Vasudeva, she was then going to Vasudev's palace for the first time. She had never been there before. They used to have that tradition in Ireland. I remember my mother telling me about it, where, you know, there would be no sex before marriage. You wouldn't go to what do you call them, the fiance's home or anything like that. So it was similar, that tradition, you know. So Kamsa wanted to make his sister feel comfortable. So he thought, I'll drive the chariot and that will help her feel comfortable and all of that. So he was kind of in the mood of showing support and love for his sister. But once he heard that voice, Kamsa! Can you imagine? I've never heard an unembodied voice from the sky. I don't know if any of you have, but if you have, I would suggest you were probably on drugs. But anyway, so I've never heard one of those voices. But can you imagine if you hear that? And they call your name, Pragosh! You're such a fool! It would, So, Kamsa stopped the chariot, and what was the very first thing he did? Even though he was driving that chariot to support his sister, what was the very first thing he did? Stopped the chariot, took out his sword, grabbed Devaki, his sister, by the hair, and put the sword to her throat. And he was about to become one of the first, I won't say that. He was going to sever his sister's head from her body. And Srila Prabhupada tells us, and this is the thing about hearing these pastimes of Krishna, that we need to do it with a purified heart. And this is Srila Prabhupada's message. It's an incredible message. Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture on Janmastami, on this very point, how Kamsa was once a loving brother, and then suddenly he was going to kill his sister. He said, this is because his sister was going to give birth to a child who was going to kill him, and therefore, Srila Prabhupada says, Kamsa realized that his sense gratification was now going to be interfered with. And when our sense gratification, if we're attached to sense gratification, if somebody is going to interfere with it, we do not like it. We do not like it. And two quick examples. Lots of children in the room. I have 2 children, well, they're quite old now, but I've got some grandchildren. I was with them yesterday. And they'll play happily together until one of them decides that the other child has a toy that they want. And when they want the toy that the other one has, all hell breaks loose. And if you let them at it, they would probably kill each other just to get that toy. So children don't hide what their needs and desires are, and you see it very plainly. Adults tend to hide it, but it's still there. So that's children. But then if you look at the geopolitical situation in the world at the moment, we have 2 wars taking place. We probably have hundreds of wars, but 2 very prominent ones taking place. I won't mention them, there's no need to mention them. But you can see the leaders in one of those wars and one of the leaders in one of the other wars. They're doing it for themselves. Their ego, their position, their prestige, whatever it is, and they're willing to have thousands and thousands and thousands of people die simply for their ego trip. That is why we have to be so careful in understanding this message of Srila Prabhupada, that we must make sure we are not controlled by our senses. When we're controlled by our senses, we can end up doing horrible, horrible things, just like Kamsa did, and just like some of the leaders in the world at the moment do. So Srila Prabhupada finishes by saying, therefore, the only people you can trust, are devotees of Lord Krishna, who are in control of their senses. And the best way that we can control our senses is by engaging in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you have somebody who is literally 24/7 serving Guru and Krishna, you can trust them. So, that's the purifying heart. The pastime about Rathayatra I wanted to tell you about was, and I don't know if you've heard this pastime, I love it, it's a wonderful, wonderful pastime. So, Krishna is in Dwarka. Dwarka is not Vrindavan, as you know, and Radharani, his topmost servant, is in Vrindavan, and Krishna is in Dwarka. And one day, Krishna, because of intense separation from Radharani and the gopis, Krishna once said, Na parayaham, I cannot repay you to Radharani. I cannot repay the devotion that you have for me. So Radharani was a very, very, very special devotee of Lord Krishna. She criticized Lord Brahma one time, the creator of the material universes. She criticized him because he gave her, and he gave you and me, he gave us eyelashes. And she got on Lord Brahma's case. Why did you give me eyelashes? Because 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day, I have to blink my eyes. And when I blink my eyes, for that split second, I do not see Krishna. So she was totally devoted to Lord Krishna. So Krishna He was in Dwarka, he thought of Radharani and realized she was so far away, and he fainted. I'm not going to fall on the floor. There's a drama coming after me. So, fell on the floor, fainted, Krishna fainted. And then different devotees arrived. Balaram came, Narada Muni came, Uddhava came, and they came to Krishna and they said, how are we going to wake up Krishna? How are we going to bring Krishna back to consciousness? We want to become Krishna conscious, and now they wanted to bring Krishna back to consciousness. So they were thinking, what will we do? And one of them said, I know, we'll get Narada Muni, to sing the glories of Vrindavan on his veena, and chant and sing the glories of Vrindavan. And they said, great idea, let's do it. And then Uddhava, I think, he said, whoa, wait a minute. If you do that, Narada, then Krishna will surely wake up. But then he will want to be with Radharani. And he will just run off like a madman all the way to Vrindavan. So we better have a plan. He said, good, that was a very good piece of information, Uddhava. Thank you very much. He said, okay, what we'll do is we'll get Daruka, and we'll get Daruka to prepare Krishna's chariot to bring him to Vrindavan. And then Uddhava said, yes, that's good. But also, I'm aware, I've been told that the residents of Vrindavan, since Krishna left, they have just been so distressed, that they're crying piteously is the word that is used. So they're just wailing and crying in great distress. So, if Krishna hears that when he's approaching Vrindavan, it will just break his heart. His heart will be broken. So, Balaram said, okay, Uddhava, you go first. You go to Vrindavan first, and you tell the people of Vrindavan, Krishna's coming, so no need to be crying anymore. Now you can be happy because Krishna's on his way. And Uddhava said, great idea. The only problem is, previously, I was asked to bring Krishna from Mathura back to Vrindavan, and for one reason or another, I wasn't able to do that. And the residents of Vrindavan, they won't trust me. If I tell them Krishna's coming, they'll just say, you said it, you told us before Krishna was coming. We don't believe you. And then Uddhava says, why don't you go, Balaram, and tell them? And Balaram says, well, I've got the same problem. One time, Mother Yashoda Rohini wanted me to organize something about Krishna and bring Krishna, and I couldn't get Krishna to come, so they won't trust me either. And they were scratching their heads, thinking, oh God, what are we going to do? And at that moment, Subhadra came on the scene. And Subhadra says, I'll go to Vrindavan and I'll tell them. What I'll tell them is, when I get there, is that me and Krishna left together. But because Krishna is so popular and so many people were stopping him on the way, he's a little delayed, but he's coming. And they'll believe me because I'm not a man. And as we know, this is Subhadra, as we know, men are very crooked, whereas women are straightforward, simple and straightforward. Prabhupada says, many times, he says, life is simple for the simple and complicated for the crooked. I don't know, there's a lot of ladies in the audience. Would you agree that men are crooked? Please tell me who your husband is or your boyfriend is, and I'll have a word with them later. And would you agree that you're all very honest and straightforward? Oh, self-praise is no praise, okay? So, they got the chariot ready for Subhadra, and just as she was getting on the chariot to go to Vrindavan, Balaram said, hey, I can't let my sister go on her own. It's dangerous on the roads at night. Do you think it's dangerous on the roads at night? I tell you, if it was in Dublin, it would be dangerous, that's for sure. Anyway, she says, Balaram says, I can't let my sister go on her own, so I'll accompany her. Okay? So they set off to Vrindavan. And you're probably getting the picture now. Balaram headed off, Subhadra, and who's coming after them? Krishna. What does that remind you of? What does it remind you of? The clue was in the beginning when I said Ratha Yatra. Remember? Remember that? Remember that pastime? Okay, so they head off. Balaram and Subhadra head off to Vrindavan. And then Narada Muni, he starts playing his veena and chanting Hare Krishna and chanting beautiful bhajans. And immediately Krishna wakes up. And exactly as they predicted, when Krishna woke up, he just thought, first off he thought he was in Vrindavan. And he was saying, where's Radha? Where's Radha? I want to see Radha. And then he looked at Narada Muni, he saw Narada Muni and he saw Uddhava. And he said, what are you doing in Vrindavan? You're not meant to be in Vrindavan, you're meant to be in Dwarka. And then Krishna realized that he was in Dwarka. So then he said, oh, I have to go to Vrindavan. And he went to run to Vrindavan. And they said, no, Krishna, we have a chariot ready for you. So they carried Krishna onto the chariot. Krishna was in such an intoxicated state that his body was shaking and shaking. And that's the mood of Rath Yatra when Lord Jagannath is being put onto his Rath cart. He's in that intoxicated state. So Krishna was the same. He went, and then they went off to Vrindavan. While they were halfway, Krishna was halfway there, Balaram and Subhadra had arrived in Vrindavan. And when they arrived in Vrindavan, as predicted, the citizens were all desperately sad and crying piteously. And they were effectively, it's described that the residents were effectively near death. They were so distressed, they were near death. And particularly Radharani was near death. So much so, they were holding cotton wool to her nose to see if she was still breathing, if there was some air still coming out. And Abhimanyu, he got some water from the Yamuna and he was bathing her feet, but he was careful not to touch her. Another really amazing thing. Abhimanyu is we understand is Radharani's husband, but he was careful not to touch her because Radharani's real husband is Krishna. And in fact, the only reason that Radharani married Abhimanyu and Abhimanyu married Radharani was so as that Krishna could then engage in his Parakriya Ras with Radharani. And it's understood that the form of Radharani that Abhimanyu married was a Chaya form, a shadow form of Radharani. So he was he was bathing her feet and washing her feet, and they were trying to revive Radha. And then Krishna arrives. Krishna arrives now on his chariot. And Krishna immediately goes to Radharani. And when he sees Radharani in such a difficult situation, he actually goes into ecstatic symptoms. And his arms pull in, again, just like Lord Jagannath, his arms retreat in, just like Lord Jagannath. And then the air from his body goes over Radharani's body. And as that's happening, Radharani shows signs of life, but Krishna falls unconscious. And then, as Radharani is showing signs of life, who is it? Is it Lalita or Chandravali? Lalita. Lalita whispers in Radharani's ear, Krishna is here. Krishna is here. And as soon as Radharani hears that, she comes to full life. And when she comes to full life, she tells Vishaka to whisper into Krishna's ear, Radhe, Radhe. So she whispers Radhe, Radhe into Krishna's ear, and Krishna wakes up. And then he says to Radharani, he says, Radha, Radha, Dehi Pada Pavalam Udaram. Please let me take your lotus feet and place them on my head. So this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, placing Radha's lotus feet on his head because she's such a pure devotee. Imagine the Supreme Personality of Godhead wanting you to do that. And then Radha and Krishna engage in their incredible Madhurya pastimes. But then, and this is so significant for all of us, then what happens is, they're woken up in the morning by beautiful birds like cuckoos, etc., singing. And they're woken up at 4 a.m. And what do? They go to Mangalarti. And they go to a full spiritual program, showing us the example, again, coming back to purifying our heart. I'm going to finish now. I think I've probably gone over my time, but I'm going to finish now. But I want to finish with this final message. And the final message is that Srila Prabhupada told us. He told us that we can all engage in the intimate, confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna. We can all do that. That door is open for all of us. if we purify our hearts. And he said the best way to purify your heart is through the process of Sankirtan. And through this process of Sankirtan, and particularly the congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna, we can purify ourselves and then become qualified to enter into these incredible pastimes. So let me ask you a question and then I'll finish. How many of you would like to enter into the intimate pastimes and confidential pastimes of Shri Shri Radha Krishna?
Hands up, please.
Thank you. Wonderful. So therefore, what we are going to do is we are going to all chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra one time together, as loud, as sincere, as affectionately, as powerfully as we possibly can. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Rama Rama!
Rama Rama!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Huge round of applause, please.